he's very private, George, now. There's no paparazzi chasing him. There's no one outside his school. There's no one at the sports ground when he's playing sports. And that's because William was determined to not to let it happen to his children what happened to him. I mean, already I think he appreciates that he is someone special. He is someone special. But you know, they're trying to protect him from all the pressures that brings at the moment and let him enjoy his childhood and his school days, which I think is the correct thing. But that picture, super picture, just tremendous. He's got great head of hair. I hope he keeps his hair, unlike his father and grandfather, who sort of theirs disappeared quite quickly.
Prince George just turned 12, and while most kids his age might get excited over video games or a big party, what got him emotional was a heartfelt gesture from his dad, Prince William. And yes, it moved him to tears. Now, on the surface, it looked like your typical royal birthday, polished photos, smiles, maybe a quiet family gathering, but behind the palace doors, it was a moment that revealed just how close this father and son really are. William, who's always tried to give George the kind of grounded, loving childhood he never had, did something on this special day that hit home. And what makes this even more powerful is how much it reflects the way William himself was raised, shaped by quiet moments with Queen Elizabeth and the loss of his own mother, Princess Diana. This wasn't about status or titles, it was about connection, the kind that sticks with you for life.
I think it was lovely. I think compared to last year was very formal, wearing a suit and looking very sort of grown up. This year he looked more like a 12-year-old lad, you know, and he's grinning and like he's enjoying life.
Prince George may be second in line to the throne, but he's not growing up under the same pressure his father and grandfather once did. William and Catherine have made it a point to give George and his siblings a quieter, more grounded childhood. They pulled back from the old royal formula where duty came before childhood, and instead they've built a strong foundation around privacy, routine, and emotional support. Unlike Prince Charles, who was often placed in the public eye from a young age, or even William, who grew up under the weight of global attention, George is being raised with care and caution. The Wales family protects their children's space. George doesn't attend every royal event. He isn't constantly paraded in front of cameras, and that's intentional. Catherine especially has been very vocal about early childhood development. Her work shows how much she values emotional awareness, strong parental bonds, and mental self-being, and you can see all of that reflected in how she raises her kids. Instead of preparing George to be a king through constant royal exposure, William and Kate are focusing on letting him be a child first. There's structure, yes, but also room to grow, question, feel, and just be. The kind of gentle parenting Catherine promotes publicly, it's exactly what's happening behind closed doors. And when you step back and look at it, it's a pretty major shift in how the royal family handles the next generation. They're not rushing George toward a crown, they're giving him time to understand who he is before asking him to understand what he'll one day represent. They've traded royal rigidness for warmth and real connection, but that's especially clear when you look at Prince William and George. It's no secret that Prince George looks up to his dad, and it's more than just admiration. It's almost like watching a younger version of William growing up beside him. There have been several public moments where George has mirrored his father, whether it's matching outfits at events, the way he walks beside him, or how he reacts to cameras. Royal watchers even call him William's mini-me, and not just because of look, is in the way George follows his lead, quietly and respectfully. But this connection didn't just happen by chance. William has been hands-on as a parent. He does school runs, helps with homework, and spends personal time with his children, even when royal duties pile up. Insiders say he's always made a point to be present, especially for George, not just as a father, but as a guide. What's different here is that George isn't just being told he'll be king someday. He's watching a future king, his father, live out that role with balance, patience, and a whole lot of care. And that makes an impact. Royal author Duncan Larcombe once pointed out how George clearly looks up to William, not just for his title, but for who he is. And when you combine that admiration with the emotional security Catherine brings into the household, you start to understand why this bond is so strong. It's not about training him to be royal, it's about showing him how to lead with character. George isn't being shaped by protocol, he's being shaped by his parents, who just happen to be preparing him for one of the most demanding roles in the world.
Well, George was put in this position where he had cameras on him, but he was also surrounded by members of his family, and so was able to take cues from them.
So when Prince George turned 12, the moment that caught him off guard wasn't a grand party, it was a gift from Prince William. That left a real mark. According to insiders close to the family, William gave George something from the heart, a handwritten letter, and not just any letter. This one was said to be inspired by William's own memories of his mother, Princess Diana. The letter was described as emotional and deeply thoughtful, a father opening up about the weight and meaning of legacy of growing up royal and the lessons he learned from both his mother and his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. For a 12-year-old boy, especially one being raised in a family that's careful with emotions in public, this kind of intimate message is powerful. It's also been quietly rumored that William included something more, possibly a small heirloom once owned by the late Queen. We're not talking about something flashy or showy, but something symbolic, something that once sat in her private spaces, a reminder of her long reign and her private moments with William. If true, that detail carries weight, because what William really gave George was a piece of personal history, not through tradition, but through emotion. And for George, who's been raised in a bubble of love, as royal insiders have described it, this hit was different. Sources say he didn't cry because he was sad, he cried because he was moved. The kind of emotion that comes from knowing you're seen, understood, and loved, not just by your parents, but by the generations before you. What this gift shows is how intentional William is about raising his son. He's not just handing down responsibilities, he's handing down meaning. He's saying, you're not alone in this. You're part of something bigger and you're ready because we're here to help you grow into it. And in a family known for holding back emotions, this moment speaks volumes. It's a quiet shift where tradition meets real connection, and George is already feeling that legacy in a way that's honest, not forced. But the meaning of the gift goes even deeper because it ties George to not one, but two generations of monarchs who came before him. While William is clearly George's day-to-day guide, King Charles plays a quieter but meaningful role in shaping his grandson's royal path. Their bond is less visible, but it's very real. Charles, now 75, sees George as more than just his grandson. He sees him as part of the future of the monarchy and someone who will one day continue the legacy he himself inherited from Queen Elizabeth. One of the biggest signs of that trust came last year when Charles personally chose George to be one of his pages of honor at the coronation. That wasn't just a ceremonial role, it was a public show of confidence. George stood beside his grandfather at one of the most historic royal moments in decades. And he did it with quiet strength, despite all the eyes watching. That decision from Charles was a message. George matters. He's already part of this. But behind the scenes, Charles takes on more of a mentor role, slow and steady. Royal insiders have described their relationship as very traditional for now, more like a typical grandfather and grandson. But as George gets older, that's expected to shift. Charles, who was personally mentored by Queen Elizabeth for decades, knows the value of timing, when to offer guidance, when to step in, and when to just be present. That approach is already working. Experts have said Charles views George as a bridge, someone who will one day connect the values of the old monarchy with the modern world William and Catherine are shaping. And that's a huge role to carry. But with Charles offering that quiet support, George is slowly learning what it means to carry royal legacy with both tradition and change. And just like his dad did years ago, George now has two guiding lights, one in his father and one in his grandfather. But that's not where the mentorship ends. Prince William didn't just learn how to be royal from official duties or public appearances. A big part of his preparation came from personal time with Queen Elizabeth, time that few people ever saw. When he was at Eton, William would often walk over to Windsor Castle on Sundays to have tea with his grandmother. It wasn't just a friendly visit. These moments were where the Queen, in her own gentle way, began passing down the values she lived by: duty, calm leadership, and long-term thinking. According to those who witnessed these interactions, they would sit in the Oak Room, sometimes just the two of them, and talk about matters of state, history, and what it really means to serve. It wasn't cold, it was slow, steady mentoring, the kind that sinks in over time. And that private space in front of the fire is where William first started to understand what it would take to be king one day. Now, as a father, William is drawing directly from those lessons, but adding his own approach. He's more emotionally open with his children than the older generation ever was. He's using what the Queen taught him, but with more personal connection. Instead of lecturing George on duty, William shows him what it looks like through action, through conversations, and through small, meaningful moments, like the birthday letter. It's not just about legacy. It's about helping George feel ready for that legacy, in his own way. So while the world sees a quiet, shy 12-year-old, what's happening behind palace walls is nothing short of royal preparation, with a soft touch. Prince George may be second in line to the throne, but he's still a kid, and William and Kate are making sure he sees one for as long as possible. They've been very deliberate about how much of the public spotlight he sees. His appearances are rare, but always purposeful. We've seen him at Wimbledon, at the King's birthday parade, and during the VE Day 80th anniversary. But beyond those key events, his life is balanced. It's not about hiding him, it's about choosing when and how to start easing him into the role he's going to inherit. William and Kate are walking a very fine line, giving George the space to grow up with love and freedom while slowly introducing him to the expectations that come with his title. That kind of balance isn't easy, especially inside the royal system. But so far, they've managed it by putting emotional security first, making sure George feels supported and never rushed. He's not being pushed onto the royal stage, he's being guided toward it. Bit by bit, he's learning how to carry himself in public, how to be confident, and how to connect with people, all while still enjoying a childhood surrounded by family, school, and everyday fun. And maybe that's why a simple gesture from his dad, a letter, a memory, a hug, meant more than any throne ever could. Prince George didn't cry because he's weak, he cried because he's strong enough to feel, in a family that's finally making room for real emotion. That quiet moment between father and son wasn't just about a birthday. It was a glimpse into the kind of King George might one day become: thoughtful, grounded, and deeply connected to the people around him. Do you think Prince George will change the monarchy for good? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more royal updates.